everyone, my name is Eva Galant and I'm founder and a CEO of Hashiona. I personally have a 10 years of experience working for startup environment and on a different position and different industry. I started my career as a product owner and I finished as a manager and executive for seed and post-seed startups. I was involved in different kind of industries, starting from fashion tech, going from med tech, fintech, blockchain industry, robotic process automation, and currently, obviously, running Hashiona. Most recently, just before I set up Hashiona with my co-founder, I was working as an expansion manager for WeWork and running the expansion of WeWork into a couple of markets, including Poland and Western Australia. So, guys, once building a company, you have to ensure you have all the skills needed to succeed your startup in your team internally. What that means is basically mean that you have to have a variety of skills, and you have to find the people who will believe in your idea as much as you do. And usually in startup ecosystem, we say that to produce the minimum viable product, you should have in your team hacker, hipster, and hustler. Hacker is obviously your future CTO. So it's an engineer and a developer potentially who is hands-on and will help you to build the first product. Hipster is the person who will be dedicated to your company design and user experience. So someone probably with the graphic design background or potentially UX background. And as a last one, you need so-called hustler. Hustler is a person who will be responsible for marketing in a business, is your growth hacker who will bring your first, who will be responsible for bring on the board the first users, the beta tester, potentially help you with the marketing, or help you even to convince the investor. Those three people is a minimum, but in the practice, those configurations vary startup by startup. Why? Mostly because that depends on your industry that you're building your startup. It will be looking a little bit different in, let's say, B2B business and a little bit different in B2C business. It may vary between your medtech or health tech startup and fintech startup. Why? For example, in the medtech, health tech flash startups, you need on board very early chief medical officer. So you have to have someone in your team who will be responsible, who has a medical background, who will be responsible for the meritocratic part of your startups. Those configurations may also vary, depends on you, your personality, and the people you have around. For example, when I start Hashiona, Hashiona have only two founders. It was me taking care about all of the business side of it, and I had my CTO Conrad, who was responsible for all of the technical side of the project. Now, later on, after a year and a half, we find two other people that join our founding team. We find Miriam, who is our chief medical officer, and we find Adam, who is responsible, who is basically acting as a COO, so chief operating officer. Why like this? First of all, it's very hard to convince people that you trust to join your idea on the very early stage. On the very early stage, when you don't have anything yet except the idea itself, convincing someone to quit the full-time job and join you for the minimum salary usually is pretty challenging. So that's the first challenge you have to face once setting up a startup. And the second one is basically you have to find the people not only who have the right skills for your business, but also the people that you will trust for the rest of your life. Mostly because the startup is like a marriage. You have to find the right person that you feel the same chemistry, that you are on the same wave, and have the same vision how to grow the company. This is very important because then if after a year or maybe a two, you decide that you want to split your ways, it will be very hard from legal perspective, but also like in terms of the trust that investors put in you as a team and so on and so on. So ensure from your first steps that you are choosing the right people for your startup. Later on, when you already have a funding on the board, when you have capital, you will be growing your management team. But those 2, 3, sometimes 4 people as a funding team are very crucial. Also, what is very important on this early stage, ensure how would you split the responsibilities in the startup and how would you split the equity. That will protect you as a person and others team members, and avoid you any disappointed further on once you grow the company, because sometimes it's like the founders are not talking about this, and later on it's true out that the splits is completely different that they imagine. Like, for example, one person may see that the split will be like 70-30%, and second person will see like, okay, I would rather like to have 50-50. Those are different situations, and you have to talk about it. It's not easy, but you have to find a mutual solution. One of the good practices on the very early stage startup is to set up your founders agreement. If you Google the phrase founders agreement, you will find a couple of templates online. It's worth to look at them, read through, and answer all of the questions that you may have to each other. So, guys, in this case, in the industry, especially in the industry like health tech or fintech, you should comply with the regulatory requirements on the market you operate. So, what I mean in the practice, you should ask yourself a couple of questions and see where you are in the understanding the requirements and how to apply for them. So, first of all, you will ask yourself, do I need any special permission to operate? Do my software, product, or services need any certification? How do I protect data of my users? How do I protect my software against hackers, potential leaks of data breach, and so on and so on? How do you have already your private policy on the place? Do you have terms and conditions to use? So the big advice here will be, on the very beginning, before you start trading, get a lawyer. Hire a lawyer and go through your business idea or your business product with your lawyer and ensure you are basically compliance with all the regular local regulation in a specific market. So, for example, I can tell you based on Hashiona experience and based on the health tech regulation. For the health tech product, you have to ensure on different market that you are that you are under those regulations. For example, in European Union, you have to have a CE mark, which is basically a medical device certification for a health tech product. And there are also different class for the product, depends on the industry you are and what how the product or services are operating. You might be a class 1, you might be class 2A, you might be class 2B, and you might be class 3 if your product is super advanced and integrate in the people's life. So those are the product. However, those are in the European Union. For those of you who want to operate in the US, there are different regulations. Obviously, you have to look for FDA, which is a little bit more complicated and more time-consuming, and obviously you need a little bit more budget for it. You have to be also in the US compliance. Sorry, you have to also comply with the HIAPA, which is the security regulation for medical product and storing the data. So depends on the country. Once again, depends on the country. You have to look what's important then. For example, in the UK as well, there is a law where you cannot store medical data on the clouds or on the service providers which are outside of the United Kingdom. Which means basically, if you are, let's say, storing your users' data on the Amazon or Google, you may not be able to cooperate with NHS, because this is not the data that their servers are not in the UK, physically in the UK. So those are those kind of things you have to remember. So a big advice here, please get a lawyer specifically for your industry and go for it. See if you need any regulation if there are any regulation to apply for you, and how you can fulfill this in line with the law. Also, another thing which is super important are your terms and conditions for your users. So go through it and see what you are promising your users, how they can complain, how they can resign from the services, how they can give you a feedback as well. And obviously, this is super important because someone may even sue you based on the terms and the conditions. So again, I would strongly recommend here to get a lawyer on it. The same for the private policy, basically. So here, guys, is a very sensitive topic. Your finance, your budgeting, your forecasting for your future startup. So first of all, most of the VC will require you to prepare financial forecast even on the early stage, which means even as soon as you apply for a pre-seed investment round, those questions will be asked. Now, this is to ensure that you are thinking about the numbers, that you are serious about your business, that you are know what you are doing and planning ahead. And obviously, as much as investor may be aware that these numbers may be not accurate in the future, and you may not deliver all of the numbers or half of it, or the reality may be completely different in a year or two for your business. But still, they want to see that there are some numbers put into place, and you are trying to and you're aiming to achieve them. So please prepare yourself. Usually, if you're early stage startup, it's enough if you prepare a simple forecast with a cost and the future revenue streams for at least 12-18 months. And a sensible investor would not require you to prepare a very advanced business plan for 3 or 5 years, mostly because all of them know that operating as a startup in a very competitive and very dynamic environment, those numbers will change anyway in the future. And it's very hard to foresee what will happen even in 2 years. Like if you look at 2019, nobody could foresee pandemic, right? Nobody could foresee that there will be a boom for health tech startup, and out of the sudden you may have so many competitors trying to do something similar or getting into space. So there's plenty reasons why the environments may change, and you are not able basically to foresee it. So please focus on the next 12-18 months. Please prepare yourself to answer a question from the investor, especially when you are just raising your first investment round. They will be asking you what kind of money are you looking for, why this kind of number, not a different one, how do you plan to spend those money, and what is the outcome on the end of the current round. And that will repeat every basically 15-24 months, because as a high growing startup, you will be looking for next investment every 15-18 months. Okay, there's a couple of questions that is worth to consider and prepare yourself for. So what I will ask you as a potential investor, I will ask you, do you know how much money do you need to fund your team, the funding team, and your employees on the first months? How much capital do you need for the tools or subscriptions or computers or office or lawyer compensation and everything related to your business and creating the first MVP? When do you expect to have your first revenue? And be honest here, some product may be able to generate earlier the first income. Some of them may be taking a little bit more time. Like for example, for health tech product, sometimes there's a research required. The building the product takes much more time. Certification takes time. Patient trials takes time, and so on. So plan accordingly for it, and be honest with your investor once presenting it. As well, don't get the pressure on since the day first. So it's good for you and for the startup to generate some revenue as soon as possible, but you don't need to go through the break even very early. And usually investors are aware about that, and they can understand building scalable business takes time and require a lot of capital. What else? What else is important? How would you be rating the churn of your users? What the churn is that you expect in your product? What will be the cost of users acquisition? Like, what kind of marketing channels would you choose to acquire them? What are the KPIs that you would put on the place? How do you finance the process? What would be your lifetime value for those users who already have been onboarded? What pace of growth per month, per year you expect, and why these numbers? Do you did any benchmark in your industry? What are your competitors' numbers looks like? Those are the questions that investor will be looking for. And the last one, and the most important, you have to decide what kind of KPIs should be applied to measure your business growth, and why those, not another one, and what are the numbers you're looking for. That's pretty much. So for this question, it is this probably 5 or 6 minutes. It may not be enough, but just to answer this question, when you are launching your product or services on a new market, in a foreign market, first of all, you have to ask yourself, am I prepared for it? Because launching a product on the new foreign market is like launching the product again. Which that means you have to come up with a launching plan and rollout plan for this market, and ensure you adjust your current product for those markets, specifically playing the local playbook. What does mean in practice is you have to ensure that, for example, the communication that you are using are adequate to the market. Like, for example, in America, people like really using the plain English, simple communication. They don't want to see any other languages in the app, so ensure everything is translate properly. Ensure as well any single bit on your website is translate correctly, because if those people will see other languages, I don't know, maybe German, maybe French, maybe Spanish, maybe Italian, they may get confused, and they may just basically close the window in their browsers, or they may download, they may remove the app, and so on and so on. So those things are super important, and each single market had their own tweaks and kind of local things that you have to be aware of. Like, for example, in Germany, when people are checking and doing like the very quick due diligence about your business, they're going to your website and they're looking for a tab called Impression, which they usually expect that your company will be registered in Germany, and you will see all of the details below, including the address, the emails, the company ID number, and so on and so on. Also, you have to be aware, once launching the product, how to prepare your structure and how will be the customer service looks like, if the customer service will be like in the local language or not, and so on and so on. So there's many those things. As well, you have to think if you have to answer yourself the question if you are planning to employ any people locally or not, or you plan to do everything remotely from the place, from your headquarters, whatever you are. And those things are also important. Time zone may affect your business and your customer service as well. So be aware about this, because I guess your employee would not like to work on the night shifts and so on and so on. So those are different stuff. For example, as well, if you plan to employ people in Germany, again, usually employees there have like 3 months notice. So you have to plan accordingly ahead and be prepared that if you recruit those people and they will be happy to join your company, there's still 3 months until they really join on your journey and join your company. Just looking at my notes if there's anything else. Visa requirements, again, the same. Like, if you plan to send some of your employees to help take new employees in the new market, you must consider the visa. And obviously, we are living in the European Union, and everyone forgot a long time ago what are the borders, what are the visas, and so on. But if you plan to join different markets, I don't know, US, Australia, China, India, whatever, those people need a visa, and the visa process may be really painful and may take even up to 3 months as well. So keep this in mind as well. Something like this may pop up. And also think about the local differences, because even in the countries where the language is basically the same, there may be a different mentality of people. Like if you think about Great Britain and US and Australia, all of these countries are pretty similar, and from the foreign people, they may look the same because they have the same language, but nothing like that. All of these countries have completely different mentality, and in your marketing, in your communication, you have to be aware about this and basically adjust accordingly as well. Sometimes even if we're talking about huge market like India or US or Australia, the difference may be even in the same country. If you think about people mentality in the East Coast and the West Coast in the US, they are a little bit different. If you think about the same for Southwest Australia and the west part of Australia, it is a little bit different. People have different habits, different work differently. The weather is different. Sometimes the climate is different. The time zone is different, and so on and so on. So all of this may impact your business. So a couple of the most important questions that you should ask yourself here is, do I really know how to play the local playbook? Do you know how to adjust your local communication for the local mentality? Do you know the local regulation? Those also may be different. Do you know your local business etiquette? If I can give you one of the advice here, I would say if you're going to the market that you never lived to and never run a business on the first place, please consider to hire an employee on this market. It can be a general manager, but it can also be a salesperson. Like for example, if you specifically your business is like related on having a sales team and a one-to-one direct meetings in country like US or Germany, please ensure you have someone local, because those sales processes looks a little bit different, and you may not be able to close any deals or be taken seriously if you don't have a local representative. The same as well for China. Also, ensure you before launching and start trading to consult the product with a local accountant and a local lawyer. Because again, regulation may be different. There may be plenty of stuff, even in Europe, that may surprise you in terms of regulation. And it's better to be prepared rather than being sorry or then paying huge fines to the government or being sued by someone else and so on and so on. So please consider this as well. Answering those questions, I always have only one advice, which is also my life motto. Never, never give up. That's the only thing I follow. Never give up and follow your dreams. Choose your dreams whenever they are. Build the product services that you have in your head, that you are dedicated to, basically fulfill your mission. Although also be realistic. So came to this game prepared. Before you start the startup, quit the job in the corporate or whatever you do, and put everything on one card. Ensure you know what you are doing. And as much as fun as this sounds, because obviously after a year or two building a company, if you look back and you see like you will know I didn't have any idea what I was doing. But do a little bit of like put a maximum of efforts and do your due diligence as well on the market that you are trying to enter. Ask yourself a couple of questions. Ask yourself, do I have all the skills I need to succeed? Did I do my homework and check the size of the market? Did I analyze already the competitors? Do I know who they are, what they are doing, how they're going, if they are generating revenue, if they're scaling, or maybe opposite, maybe they're decreasing, laying off the people, and so on and so on. Check on this. This will give you a lot of answer for a lot of your questions. Also, ask yourself how long it will take me to produce the MVP. Do I have already my founding team? Who are those people? Do I trust them? How would I finance those first months and even up to a year before we produce MVP, before you try to raise your first financing grant from the external investor or business angel and so on? How would I find those business angels? How would I attract those venture capital to join me in my mission, my idea? Also, I'll ask yourself, how do I know that the solution you are producing have a sense? How do I find my market fit? Did you do your customer development? Did you talk to your potential beta tester? Did you find them? Do you know what they want? And so on and so on. All of those questions are important. And coming back to this motto or this the best advice, I would always say, go for it. Never give up. Choose your dreams if you really believe in them, but also get prepared and listen to the people. Like, listen to the people that have the feedback for you about the industry, the market, your product, your services, even if the feedback is not in favor for you, because every person who can criticize you, it may be the person that basically are doing it because they already know the market very well, because they were trying to do something similar, or because they know how your competitors are doing. So listen to all of those people. If you see that any specific feedback is repeating very often, then maybe consider it and think, if it's not true, if you don't need to adjust something in your business, if you don't need to basically apply this advice to your product.